Okay, I'm recording now. Oh,
Hello.
hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. Okay, so it's episode 2 of the Rat and the Raccoon podcast with Nukes and Wheezy, and today we are going to talk about our favorite video game music, which I am personally super stoked about because there's some absolute bangers in here, and there's some stuff that I hadn't heard before that you shared that I'm totally curious, like very, very curious about. So this
hmm
should be a super fun one. Um, do you have any thoughts, or do you want to just dive right into it?
you shared a bunch that I hadn't heard either, and I'm really excited to get into it. We can start whenever you're ready.
Yeah, sweet. All right, so we'll open it up with this is one of your ones. So this is
hmm
Fear Factory from Donkey Kong Country. Oh my god, that's so good. So good. So why did you pick it? Like what tickles your brain about that one?
uh, I really like those. You can tell from some of my other picks. I like those really buzzy kind of sounds in songs, like industrial. I don't know what it is, and it's a unique song on the soundtrack because everything else is kind of natural because all the levels are natural, and this is the first level you get to, and it's really industrial and toxic, and it really fits the theme of it. And I always think of that song when I think of Donkey Kong. Most people would think of like the Undersea level, or there's several other ones that come to mind first, but this one is for me. I just automatically think of this song when I think of Donkey Kong.
Sweet, nice. Yeah, definitely. I've played Donkey Kong Country before, and to be honest, this one I don't remember it myself, but it's interesting just to get the perspective of okay, it stood out for you because it was just different from everything else and it fit the theme of what was going on. But I swear to God, like just when the music was playing now, I could bop along to that for a 10-hour loop video on YouTube. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's so good. So good. Um, I have your next one lined up here. If you want to like dive right into that, or do you have anything else you want to?
No, that's it for the Fear Factory. I mean, I just really like the song, and it's very it's from a simpler time of games, but this one's actually from the same era. This next one, and it's a little more complicated. But we can go right into it. This
Oh,
is a world. Oh, you want me to introduce it?
yeah, sure.
Okay. This is World Revolution from Chrono Trigger.
That's another banger, dude. That's so good, and it's another one that I wasn't familiar with.
Well, Chrono Trigger's like it and Resident Evil 2 are like my favorite games of all time. And the whole any song from that soundtrack I could have picked, and it would fit right in. It's just a great soundtrack. This is the second. This is one of the second to the last songs you get in the game. It's you're going against the final boss, Labos, and he's like this being from somewhere in space that lands on Earth in the past, and it's a time travel game. And he destroys the world in 1999, and these the main characters are the whole point of the game is to defeat Labos and keep him from destroying the future, you know. And you can hear it in this early bit, that dun, that's his theme. It's really like destruction, and you hear it over and over, and it's always something bad goes with that. And there's this like this buzzing that goes on in the background, you know, you know,
Yeah.
it's the urgentness of the situation. Like we've got to defeat him, or you know, all of time is destroyed, pretty much. You know.
Yeah, that's sick. And there's a couple of things that you've touched on too, such as like that descending note pattern that I'm going to touch on a little bit later, with a couple of mine. But that's really really sick. Like that, I think you referenced that do 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 kind of part. You know that like so good. Like these like already, I could definitely see why they tickle your brain. Not only from
Mm-hmm.
like the nostalgic factor from that era, but it's just well written music. At the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
um that's all it takes. If a piece is good, a piece is good, and sometimes you don't need to explain it. But I think what's really sweet about video games is you have that like additional context with regards to the story, the visuals, and all that
Mm-hmm.
good stuff. So yeah, no, two very strong choices there for sure. Do we want to move on to our next one?
I think the next one is still part of this song. Is
Oh yeah,
a
yeah,
little
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
little bit of
Okay,
chord
cool. Oh yeah,
evolution.
that's right, that's right, that's right. Okay, let me put it up.
Mm, this part is the main theme of the song. I mean, the main theme of the game, or Chrono's theme, and it gives you that hint of hope. Like we can do this. Every time it plays in the game, any other time, it's they're determined. They're gonna go and you know we can do this. You know that's what that gives you in this. Like we can band together and we can defeat Labos.
Yeah. No, and it's really, really cool. And something I noticed, and I didn't notice it when I was like prepping the clips for the podcast, was that sound travels from left to right and right to left, vice versa. Which
Mhm.
is an interesting way of producing the audio for such an old game. When you think back to that
Mhm.
era, where a lot of people are just going to be playing it through their real basic TVs, right? And you're probably not going to get that,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
that experience from the audio. You're not going to notice it right through a TV, unless you had, like I said, a headphones connected to it or whatever, which I don't think many of us really did back in those days. We just let it blare through the speakers. But correct me if I'm wrong.
Mhm.
So it's really interesting that they actually went to that much effort with regards to the audio production there. But it's, yeah, it's pretty sick.
And it's every track on that game is so complicated. It was hard to pick, but I picked this one. Most people would have picked probably Corridors of Time, which we're not listening to today, but maybe in the future if we do this again.
Oh, I'm definitely convinced that there'll probably be like some sort of part two to this video at some point, because it really, really was so difficult, like to nail down the choices. And
Mhm.
I don't know, you could probably hear it in us a little bit more like this week that we're super giddy. Well, I'm definitely a little
Yeah.
bit more giddy, like to talk about this stuff. Not that there was anything wrong with last week's discussion on RE1 remake.
Mhm.
But no, it's like really really cool that we were spoiled for choice when we were trying to noodle on this topic. Cool, sweet. So I'm gonna move on to my first one. And this is an absolute classic, and I don't think it really needs that much of an introduction. It's Hyrule Field from A Link to the Past. Oh man, and I know for a fact you love that one too. There's no
Yeah.
denying it.
That's
It's
my favorite Zelda game too, by
uh
the way.
oh really? I didn't actually know that that was your favorite. Like you kind of alluded to already. Like that just brings me back to a completely different time in my mind where
Mhm.
carefree, sitting in my bedroom by myself playing games, keeping myself entertained as a
Mhm.
wee fella back in the home country. And I don't know, it just brings me to a completely different place, like emotionally, which is awesome. To have like such fond memories that I'm super grateful for.
Mhm.
But yeah, a couple of things that I really like about that in particular. Um, the marching beat of the snare in the background
Mhm.
really gives this kind of like call to action, right? You know that you've got this journey ahead of you. And
Mhm.
it's like an almost military or a militant style beat. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay, this is ahead of me. I'm doing the thing and I am about to embark on this huge journey. And it's complemented very well by like the lead synthy sounds on it too. But
Mhm.
in what you had said about Chrono Trigger, which is interesting that we both picked up on this with different pieces of audio, is there's also that kind of danger aspect or that sense of evil in the tune as well,
Mhm.
almost as if to say to the player that, yeah, you're about to embark on this epic journey, but be warned, their evil
Mhm.
awaits that you're going to have to overcome. And in particular, it's like this part of it. I actually have it clipped here, so I'm just going to play it like super quick here. So you've got like those weird patterns that don't align
Mhm.
with like the epic sounds of that call to action. And what's also interesting about it is like it just gives you this sense of apprehension or anxiety. And I also noticed as well
Mhm.
that there's this kind of effect, like this doo 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 effect, that's very
Mhm.
reminiscent of some of the magic that the enemies
Ah.
casts. So if I play it again, just like listen out for that. I'm just gonna play it once more. Like you would hear it in like
Hmm.
the center of the audio. It's like it kind of just like reminded me of one boss fight in particular. I don't need to get in the rabbit hole of it now, but I was like, oh, it's kind of interesting that they use that to signify danger in the tune, but also use it as it could be also used as a sound effect for a boss, or it's very reminiscent of one, I should say. But yeah, that's my first tune there. It's totally epic.
There's
Like I said, brings me back to a completely different time.
Yeah, and like you mentioned the underlying danger and stuff. You can hear that in like in the first clip you played, where they play the classic Zelda theme, but then under it, it's in like a different scale. Or I'm not very I'm not educated on music terms, but it's like a little lower in the background. It's playing it like play it again and listen
Yeah,
to it.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry if you didn't want
You know what?
just
Let's play it right through again because it's that good. So
you
yeah,
can hear that little tone right up under it.
yeah,
That's
over on the left side of the speaker, if I'm
mhm.
not mistaken, I can hear it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's interesting. I didn't actually take any notice of that. It's like different layers to it, right? So I'm hearing one thing, but you're hearing something else, and like when you point that out to me, I'm like, huh, what the hell? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Sweet, sweet. So I'm actually going to move on like to my next one now because it's a modern version of what I just talked about, right? So before I play the theme, it's actually the main theme from Elden Ring, right? But before I play it, just a couple of things to keep in mind is like that call to action idea that I just talked about, the epic journeys ahead of you, and just like apprehension, anxiety about the danger that lies ahead. So I'm just gonna put this on, and I'm telling you right now, this is one of the most epic things that you're ever gonna hear. Oh, I would love to just
Holy
end the podcast right now and just go play Elden Ring. Oh,
shit.
dude, it's so good. Like I words can't do it justice, right? Beyond what I've said already. You've got the call to action
Mhm,
with the percussiveness, the
mhm,
grandness of the instruments. It's just you're about to embark on the heaviest thing that you're going to embark on in your video game life.
mhm,
It's incredible, and does a very similar thing that I had mentioned and that you had mentioned um with Chrono Trigger, and I had mentioned with A Link to the Past. Is that, those weird patterns that indicate that anxiety too, and I'm just going to give it a quick
mhm,
whirl here. Do like
mhm,
it just indicates danger. So it just goes to show, although there's such a long span of time in between these games, all of the ideas behind the audio and what they try and evoke in the player, it's still the exact same. And I found that to
yeah,
be really, really cool when I actually sat down and I was prepping for this and I thought about this. I was like, wait a minute. When I played Hyrule Field, I was just like, there's so many parallels here to the Elden Ring
mhm,
main theme that I was like, this is evoking the exact same response, bar the nostalgia factor for Zelda, of course. But yeah,
mhm.
awesome. That theme is up there as like one of my favorites right now.
There's like this little tiny little bit of tranquility at the very beginning of the theme, and then it's shattered with that dun 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 dun.
You use the word
The
shattered, and you haven't played Elden
yeah,
Ring. That is
yeah.
interesting.
I've,
I'm not gonna say anything else about
I
that.
played the very beginning of Elden Ring. I hope to get
That
back
is
to it soon.
super super interesting. Go play Elden Ring, and you're when you, because I don't want to say anything, but when you play it, you're just gonna be like, oh shit. You're gonna be like, oh shit. Interesting. Very, very, very interesting, Mr. Nukes.
Mm-mm.
Sweet. All right, so we've got a couple that are kind of. It was just by chance that one of them is my favorite and the other one was your favorite, but
Mhm.
your one is a sequel to my one, and my one is in relation to what we talked about last week. So I'm gonna take the lead on this first part, and then you could talk about the second part because I think you want to draw some parallels. And if I'm incorrect,
Mhm.
feel free to correct me. But uh, yeah, here we go. I'm just gonna play this. This should be an instant classic for some people. Oh boy. The first video game to actually properly scare the shit out of me too, by the way. Um just popped into my head now. I hadn't intended on talking about this, but I never played the Ori 1 OG um
Hmm.
prior to my first playthrough experience of Ori 1 Remake. By the way, that's where the tune is from, in case you didn't know. Um but the dogs through the window and the L-shaped corridor was my first ever moment of video games can be scary. I was like, that was popped into my head. I was like, hang on a second here. This actually shook me up. Like, it absolutely shook me up. Um, but this audio from the main hall theme in Ori 1 Remake is a classic. And I'm sure a lot of people
Absolutely.
are familiar about it, but it's easy for me to sit here and just say, oh, it just matches the tone of the mansion. You know, and we talked about that
Hmm.
in Gradeland last week or whatever. And it's be easy for me to say, oh, it's spooky, and just
Yeah,
leave it
it's
at that. But I
spooky.
think there's potentially more depth at play here, right? And this is like the English student in me coming out, right? So stop me at any point if you're like, you're out of your mind here. But um, the choir sound, right? It gives this
Hmm.
religious kind of connotation, and it's
Ah.
played upon your arrival in the Spencer Mansions. So it kind of gives you this feeling of you've entered almost like the home of a god or the home of something religious or something, something's off, but you feel like you've entered this home of some sort of like higher being. So I went and I did a
Hmm.
little bit of research, Nukes, and you're going to be like kind of proud of me here, right? So throughout the lore in Resident Evil, um, and I don't know if it's what game it's in. It could be an Ori 1 remake, but there's notes that tell us that Spencer considered himself to be godlike from the perspective
Hmm.
that he wanted to like mold this utopia through Umbrella's work and kind of save it from a hypothesized self-destruction should
Hmm.
he not
That's correct.
intervene, right? So it's like,
Mhm.
Spencer Mansion, that's his home. It's his gaff, as we say back in Ireland. It's got that kind of godlike feeling to it when you walk in. From not only not only just the grandeur of the mansion. Is that a word? I don't know even
Yeah,
know if that's a word, but yeah, there we
yeah,
go.
it is.
Yeah, the English student in me, right? But yeah, the audio is like very choir like, and it lends itself to being like a place that's almost like religious or something. So that was one of my like findings, and I found that to be super interesting because I always did find it very um angelic like, but
Yeah, I
with
can see that.
something
I've never
that's,
even thought
yeah,
about
kind of
that
off.
before.
Yeah.
It's very
Um
grand and opulent, and but then like it's going, the mystery of the mansion too is still there, and yeah.
yeah, and I also kind of like wanted to touch on just like the sound of the choir itself like might symbolize Umbrella's work, so the sounds that they emit are like very dull and haunting, and they're almost very similar or comparable to like the sounds that the zombies make, right? Very kind of just the
Hmm.
regular zombies, like this dull and haunting kind of sound. So it almost sounds like the choir itself is undead, or it's like a zombie
Hmm.
a zombie choir, if you will. So I thought, it could be like a symbolic connection between the work that
Yeah.
or the outcome of Umbrella's work. So that's my student analysis on that main hall theme, and it's honestly like one of my favorite themes.
He has a top tier theme, and it very well related to the next one.
Yeah, so let's throw that on here.
you can see
Nice.
some of the parallels immediately
For
with
sure.
the kind of, I know the police station has a bell, but they're church bells ringing in there, and it gives you that mystery, that grandeur, and in the context of it, you when you first open the doors and hear this tune, you just did this gauntlet through Raccoon City, and now you're like, okay, I'm safe, but then there's this hint of, but not for very much longer. There's that mystery and haunting that's in RE1 main hall that's there too, and like you, this was the first game that scared me when the liquor jumps through the window.
Oh yeah.
I was like, I don't know how I was. I don't know, 9 years old when this came out, and I shouldn't have been playing it probably, but
Probably
I
not.
was.
Probably not. But yeah, no, it's an awesome theme, right? The one thing that I love about RE2 Remake is that you can play the classic
Hmm.
soundtrack, right? When you put this classic soundtrack up against RE2 Remake, it still fits. It still stands
Hmm.
the test of time. It doesn't seem out of place. And that was coming from somebody who my first exposure, maybe, to like this audio was actually through the remake, right? Because I'd
Hmm.
mentioned that on the last pod that my first experience with RE2 was the remake. So um, if you would just straight up play like the original soundtrack to me up against the backdrop of the new game, I wouldn't bat an eye at it. I know better now, but no, it once again stands the test of time, and it's doing all of those
Hmm.
same things all these years later that we would expect audio from a horror game to do,
Hmm.
which is
Exactly.
sick. Anything else you want to say about it, or we move on?
Um. This there's one more thing. Just
Sick,
you
yeah.
can feel like this. The safe. You're safe from the streets and all that when you hear this tune. But then the not for long bit, like the urgency that's still. I mean, not the urgency, but like the danger that's apparently a theme in a lot of our songs, not planned, but you get that piano doom doom stuff. Is like there's something dangerous here too, and or something horrible has happened here, and it's still happening.
Yeah, I think
It's
maybe what we've
yeah.
learned about this podcast is we might need to like chill the fuck out a little bit with with regards to the games that we play. We might need to get some relaxing sim games on the go here. But no, like these are like super like interesting points, and yeah, it's once again it's just another one of those that's an absolute classic and does everything that it sets out to do.
Hmm. Yep.
Awesome. Right. Let's move on to the next one. Tell us a little bit about this next one.
This one is from Fable, and it's the very first tune you hear in the town of Oakville where you start the game.
That's just like splendid. Is the best word I could use to describe that. That's so good.
Yeah, it has this like it's very nostalgic on its own. The first time you play it as a child, it's nostalgic. It's invoking that. But now, if people played that as a kid. Now it's just nostalgic for the sake of it, you know. And it's also nostalgia for the player. I mean, the player character. You know, if you think about like this is when you're a child at the beginning of um, Fable, and you grow and become either good or evil, however you play the game. And this, you know, it's before the events of the game take place, really. And he's just a child in his village, and it has this whimsy, this waltzy,
Innocence.
peaceful kind of tune.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's like
innocence
some innocence to it. Yeah, for sure. I definitely hear that.
and little hints of magic. Um, you know, this is, and the you know, there's a impending adventure, just like another theme that we've unintentionally come
Yeah,
across in these.
for sure. Like I definitely feel that sense of innocence, wonder, and adventure from that. I haven't played the game, but definitely those were the feelings that were evoked in me when I was listening to it for sure.
Yeah, and it's a great tune. I really like the waltziness of it. You know, that whimsically waltz tune. I'm not very well up to date on my music terms, but
Oh, no worries. It's just
yeah,
like there's like a carefree aspect to it as well, you know. It's which I guess comes along with the innocence, but no, it's really really pleasant on the ear too, right? Like I once again, I'm not like you. I'm not a music aficionado or anything like that, but it's just a very you close your eyes and you see a magical mystical wonderland without even playing the game. That's what I'm seeing anyway when
yeah,
I listen to that.
exactly. You got it exactly just from the song itself.
Awesome, yeah, yeah. So they did a good job on it.
Absolutely.
All
Mm.
right, so taking it in a little bit of a different direction, I'm gonna play you something from one of my all-time favorite games. This is from Cuphead. This is Floral Fury. Oh, the urge to dance. The urge to just dance along to that song is I think if you go onto Spotify and you look up like the Cuphead soundtrack or OST, I think that's like the most popular tune from the game. That game soundtrack, just as a separate side note, is absolutely fantastic and it's incredible, and I definitely recommend y'all check that out. So good. Um, Oh, this tune is like. Do I really need to like explain why it's so good? Once again, it tickles all those things in your brain that makes you want to move first and foremost. Which there
I
is
was
a lot.
immediately moving.
What's
I
that?
was immediately moving.
Oh
So I was
yeah,
immediately
yeah.
moving.
Just shimmying in the chair, yeah, for sure. Or maybe you're like at a standing desk and you're and you're just going nuts. But oh no, dude, it's like incredible. It's very. It seems at first when you listen to it, it's like it seems so chaotic and all over the place. But there's a level of control that comes with that chaos that you're hearing, right? It's not just a whole bunch of random sounds that are out of sync, and it's not like like an overwhelming experience to the point in which you're just like, ugh, I want to turn this off. Like this is like way too much. There's a lot of moving parts, but they're moving like cohesively. And I think it's a very symbolic of not only that boss fight, because that boss fight it's crazy. There's so much going on at once, but the game as a whole, like the whole idea of Cuphead is that you're being absolutely throttled by these bosses with so many different things at once. Um, but what happens as a player, you begin to figure out the patterns. You begin to figure out how it's controlled by the programming. And I think the music is very reminiscent of that, which, once again, it could be me going a little bit deep here, but it's there's a connection there. There's no denying it
Mhm.
that that chaos is isolated, which I find like super super interesting. Um, Another interesting thing as well is that although there's a lot going on with that particular piece of audio or that particular piece of music, I should say, there's still enough space for all of the sound effects in the boss fight to come through, right? It's
Mhm.
not cluttered up to the point in which, like I said, that you become overwhelmed as you're playing through it. It's an enjoyable listening experience while you're getting absolutely fucking destroyed by this
Yeah.
boss a million times over until you finally defeat him. So yeah, one of my favorite tunes from probably like my all time favorite game. So it's awesome.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Oh yeah, even right now I'm like just bouncing up and down on the chair here. It's like do 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 do. Oh, it's so good. Sweet. Do we want to move on to your next one?
Sure.
Yeah, this next one's awesome as well.
All right. There's a lot going on there.
Oh, so good as well. I know I keep saying that about every song or
Yeah.
piece of music that we've selected, but that's sick. Tell us where it's from. Tell us about it.
This is the theme of Alexia Top 1 from Resident Evil The Darkside Chronicles. It's an orchestral remake from the same song in Code Veronica X, but this one's above and beyond better. And is I guess I have an affinity for boss music, but this is like the first song. There's two versions of this song, but this is the first one you hear at the beginning of final boss fight with Alexia, and you can hear this the it's it's got a lot of going on. It's like the type of music, the opera, the
Hmm.
orchestra, and all this is Alexia's from old nobility, so it really plays into that. And how mad she's gone. She has a god complex too. This is a theme that's common through Resident Evil, as you said with Spencer. And she's fully lost it. Her whole family's dead at this point, and it that that bleeds back into the opera too, because operas usually end in tragedy, and
Mm.
her whole family's dead because of her madness. Her genius has
Mm.
been unleashed on the world, and she's fully ready to. And it parallels in the game against Chris and Claire, who have a totally different relationship that she does with her family, but we don't got to get all that deep into that. But it really plays in her god complex, her madness, and her aristocracy. It, and it's just a great boss theme.
Oh, that's it. That's like totally sick. So that's playing as you're fighting the boss, right? It's not
Yeah.
from a cutscene, right? Oh yeah, oh boy, yeah. That is sick. It just when I listen to it once again, I haven't played it, right? But it just pulls you in different directions, right? It just
Hmm.
pulls you into that sense of madness that you'd mentioned, and that's what I would have gathered from it, without really knowing the context, really, of the specific context of what's going on. I just felt pulled into this individual's madness or chaos. Once again to use that word, but no, very very cool, dude.
You ready to move on to the next
Sure,
one?
yeah. I think the next one, oh yeah, the next one's mine, man. This is a banger, right? I'll play it first, and then we can talk about it after. Hell yeah! So that's from another one of my favorite games, Celeste, and the title of the track is "Confronting Myself." So just to give the context, this game is really centered around anxiety and depression, and the main character Madeline, who suffers from anxiety and depression, and Madeline's battle to fight it. Um, so this kind of plays at a time when Madeline is beginning this fight against, it's Badeline, right? So it's Madeline and Badeline, but Badeline is a
Hmm.
character in the game who is like a physical representation of Madeline's anxiety and depression. So yeah, the tune starts to play, if I remember correctly, when you start that battle. Um, but a couple of things that I picked up from it was like this kind of spiritual chanting in the tune
Hmm.
is really really awesome. It's reminds me of this kind of like ancient ancestral type of vibe. And I think once again I could be reading like way too deep into this stuff, but I think the reason why this ancient kind of sound or this spiritual sound is used is those people were a lot more in tune and connected to themselves. You know, it seems as if kind of anxiety and depression, and not to get too down a rabbit hole with this, but a lot of it can come from places in, or times in which people feel disconnected from themselves. So um I just feel like her battling Madeline in this scene with that spiritual chanting in the background is kind of maybe like a metaphor, symbolic for use those practices of getting more in tune with yourself like those people did, and bring yourself to a level where you're more, I don't want to use the word spiritual, but you understand more about yourself. um and it's just that kind of like audio against that backdrop of her physically fighting the manifestation of anxiety and depression. Just like it all kind of meshes really really well together. And once again, that's my interpretation
Hmm.
of the audio. I could be way off from what the composer intended, but that's what it kind of evoked in me. And then there was like another part of it that was like so cool that the composer does, and I'm just going to play it right now and just talk about it afterwards. So you would have heard those kind of like glitchy kind of chopped up sounds, like those almost like a breaking sound at the beginning of the
Hmm.
theme. And I think that might be a message of, as this fight is progressing against, anxiety and depression, that a breakthrough is occurring, um
Yeah.
that you're fighting your way out to the other side. And there's any of us, me personally, I have gone through some anxiety and depression, and there's different breakthroughs that you go through as you're on your kind of like road to recovery. And I felt that the use of that kind of glitching audio, or that chopped up audio, was very cool, very symbolic of that as well. So yeah, that's honestly a really, really, that's probably like the sickest tune from that game. And that
Hmm.
game's overall message is so strong. And even if you're not into platformers, or even if you're not, I highly
Hmm.
recommend you guys go out and play it. It's absolutely fantastic just for the message alone.
There was
Sweet.
also a bit of a hope in that too, in that tune, like the hope of getting through it, the hope of seeing the end of this anxiety and depression.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's what it's kind of, I feel too, is if it's the intention. It's what they want to kind of evoke in people. Um and that's what the, like, once again, the overall message of the game is. And it's, yeah, it's just thinking back on it now, it's definitely one of my all-time favorites. And I do, what's really interesting, I do specifically remember the first time I did that boss battle, and the music, and just getting chills from not
Mm-hmm.
only like the actual visual and audio experience, but like, just, I was like, oh man, this is pretty heavy right now. I was like, there's so much
Yeah.
at play here that I could relate to from back in the day. And yeah, it's awesome. Sweet. This next one is one of mine, and there's a very similar theme at play here with regards what I've just talked about. I don't want to kind of go into too many details um, about this, but it comes from the psychological horror game Devotion, which is a bit controversial for a little while. I know it was taken off Steam for a completely different reason that we're
Really?
not. Oh yeah, do you know about this?
No, I didn't even know about this game.
Okay, well, do yourself a favor after this. Give it a little Google, and you'll see what happened. It's yeah, it's, I don't know if the content has since been removed from the game and it's back up on Steam. Um, but yeah, this game itself had a little bit of controversy upon release. But yeah, the audio I want to play for you comes from towards the end of the game. Once again, I'm being like intentionally vague here. Um, so there's a key character. I'm trying my best not to butcher this, and put on earmuffs if you don't want spoilers. But I'm going to try my best. But it comes in a particular moment or time in the game when you see all of the anxiety, pressure, and stress relieved from an individual through this kind of dream sequence. So I'm just going to play it, let it speak for itself, and then just a couple of follow up things I'll say afterwards.
我会想和你看了宇宙和天空，或是沙滩里的碎屑和人生。你会不会还是坦率地想着我的荒唐？
Sick. That's another one of those tunes that just gives me goosebumps. yeah, once again, I don't want to like say too much, but it just ties in really, really well with the visuals that are going
Hmm.
on in that dream sequence. So, like, it starts off in a soft place, but like when that distortion sound from the guitars like kicks in, it happens at the same time that in this dream sequence a load of like books just vertically fly into the air off the screen, which so you're getting this kind of physical pressure released through the visual medium, and also a sense of pressure relief through the music as well. And just
Hmm.
for those who have played it and know the story, it just comes at this time once again, it's towards the end of the game, you're kind of piecing everything together, and then when you realize what's happened, what's going on, it's very, 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 very touching and emotional. Um, yeah, it's once again one of those pieces of music that I remember hearing for the first time in my original playthrough of a game, and just been like, "Whoa, this
Yeah.
is so not even just complimentary to what's happening, but this makes and this is like I couldn't imagine this piece of media without this music. It just wouldn't hit the same.
Yeah. It's it's a great piece of music. It's reminiscent of, to me, Silent Hill 3. I mean, not exactly, but I'm not gonna go into too many details, but it does, certain themes of it remind me of Silent Hill 3. I've never heard of Devotion's the name of
Yeah,
this song?
devotion.
I mean, this game? Okay.
Yeah,
I'll
give
look it up.
if it's on Steam, like give it a play. I normally will play it like once a year, and it's short.
Oh, really?
It's really really short. Like, but it's I swear to God, dude, it's interesting you mentioned Silent Hill because it does give the PT vibes. The psychological first person
Mm,
corridor horror thing is huge in devotion, right? I am sitting here on my hand on my forehead right now, like thinking back and just like kind of like freaking out, thinking back on how well some of the scares are done in devotion. So if
mhm.
you're looking for that type of experience, jump scares, what's around the corner type of psychological horror, it's definitely for you. But if there's listeners out there who don't like that kind of thing, just read a synopsis or a plot on it and save yourself the absolute stress. So, yeah, we are coming up to our last tune. Um, Unfortunately, because I'm really, really enjoying this discussion, and I definitely
Mhm.
feel like there's a part two in our future year. Would you like me to hit the button first, or do you want to say something about this particular piece?
Um, just play it now. Just play it and I'll do it after.
Sweet,
Let's speak for itself.
sweet. That's so fucking sick, man.
That is the Rebel Path from Cyberpunk 2077, and it's like, Chrono Trigger earlier. I could have picked any song from Chrono Trigger, and same with Cyberpunk. I could have picked any song, and I went with this one because it does a good job for framing the game. The urban hellscape that is night that is Night City, and the very synthy hard beats is like this dark 80s vision of the future. It perfectly captures the world, and um the high tech kind of, it gives you this high tech that should have freed humanity has enslaved it and to its corporate tyrants. And I don't know, it's a lot going on. It's a good theme. It's a good thing to kill things too in the game. I forget exactly where it plays. It's been a while since I played Cyberpunk.
Yeah, I was just
But
gonna ask if it was the main menu theme or where it lands in the game, but I don't think it really matters. Like though, because I played Cyberpunk, and the way in which you've described it is just, yeah, the music
yeah,
captures that
every
essence.
every
Yeah,
song.
exactly. It captures like everything so well, dude. Like sitting here just like bopping along to it as well. It's just like, I don't know, it gives me vibes of, it's like kind of making me cringe a little bit. But you and the boys getting ready back in the day to hit hit the town
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just like have like a really like fun time or a good night, and you feeling like you're the shit. Like there's that element of it too, right? It's like this confidence. I don't know. It's
Ah,
yeah.
and that
There's
that
like a
that fits well with
swagger, a swagger to it.
that fits well with like Johnny Silverhand in the game. I didn't think of that, but yeah, that's definitely there. I, it's
Yeah,
this is a great tune.
yeah,
That's a good say it for all of them, but
yeah. Now all you're thinking about is just me and the lads swaggering around Ireland back in the day. Oh man, but oh man, some absolutely whopper tunes in that list. And I don't know, like to do a part two as well, like there's so many good options left on the table, right, that I didn't add in today. Like I was going to crack a joke and say, the entire Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 soundtrack,
oh
which is
yeah,
by real bands, right? So it's kind of, not to say that these aren't real composers or musicians, you know what I mean? But the songs in that game weren't particularly like intended to be on a video game, you know what I mean? But it's still
no,
like, just me being an idiot, really. But yeah, some sick tunes there that you've shared with me, and
mhm.
definitely enticing me to play some of the games that I haven't played already, and definitely appreciate the insights that you had shared there as well.
Same, same. I'm definitely gonna check out Devotion. I have uh, some of them, like I'm pretty shit at some games. And I hope I don't get demonetized for that. Like we're even monetized, but
Have to be making something to be have to be making something to be demonetized first. Don't worry about it. I've actually set us to explicit on streaming
okay,
services where applicable, right?
good.
So yeah, which kind of reminds me that this podcast is available on Spotify, it's on Apple, and naturally enough we're on YouTube as well. So we're the Rat and the Raccoon podcast. So feel free to follow us on those platforms. Rate, give us a thumbs up. Um, Positive comments, constructive comments are all welcome as well. We definitely would appreciate it. But we do appreciate you guys listening today, and we'll catch you all in the next one.
See y'all.
Bye.